Hello, hello. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. We'll begin in 1 minute. Today is the 6th of January. So we're now reading our new chapter book. Yesterday we read chapter 1, and today we are going to read chapter 2. So I think I'm going to get straight into it, and then you can watch on replay if you miss the live, okay? So we're now on chapter 2, Shout, Shout, Let It All Out. I do beg your pardon, the Prime Minister snorted, his face now even redder than the reddest beetroot that there ever was. You again? Do you have something to say, you snivelling little wretch? Hi, Zoe. Joe felt as though the whole world was looking at him, but for once he didn't care. I said, do you have anything to say? Percival T. Duckcombe leaned in closer to Joe. He could feel the Prime Minister's hot, sticky breath on his cheek, and it stank of old kippers and misery. Yes, I do, said Joe, trying to speak and hold his breath at the same time. I hadn't finished talking to you. I think you should shut up for once and try listening for a change. You big dafty. Dafty, Percival yelped. Yes, all you do is sit around in that big building, you know, the one on the HP Stores bottle all day, yawning and shouting and telling us all off. The Prime Minister was dumbstruck, but Joe wasn't finished yet. In fact, he'd only just started. All I wanted you to do was listen to me, so I could tell you about the park. 5 minutes, that's all. But even that was too much to ask. All you did was shout at me, and it's not right. Politicians shouldn't tell us what to do. We should tell them what to do. They work for us, don't they? We pay their wages. How can they close parks without checking with us first? The whole thing is just bonkers. And another thing, why do we even need alarm clocks? Percival T. Duckcombe looked even more perplexed now. Alarm clocks? Yes, alarm clocks. Joe was really getting into his stride now. They just put people in a bad mood when they get up. Why does everything have to happen so early? If we all had a lie-in, we'd all be nicer to each other and would need fewer policemen. I think I might agree with that. Then we could turn the empty jails into theme parks. But instead of being sensible and making sensible decisions, politicians just sit on big sofas all days, falling asleep and occasionally yawning. Hear, hear. Cats should have Wi-Fi hubs on them. That way everyone could get a signal all the time. Bubblegum blowing should be an Olympic event. Joe paused for breath. It was as though everything that had ever popped into his head was coming out of his mouth, and he couldn't do anything about it. But the best thing was it felt amazing. Why don't they put swimming pools on trains? It'd make journeys a lot more fun. And why do all buses look the same? Joe suddenly asked no one in particular. I'll tell you why, to make us confused and late for stuff. They should have different shapes, one for different journeys. If there was a banana bus that took you to the shops, you'd get on it, wouldn't you? Joe said, pointing to an old gent in the crowd who nodded enthusiastically. Of course you would. What sensible person wouldn't get on a bus shaped like a piece of fruit? Don't the government want people to go on buses anymore? Well, they should make them more interesting. And here's another thing. Nobody under the age of 50 should ever wear a bow tie. All toilets should have an electric seats to warm your bum up in the winter. There should be 1 day a month at school where the children get to be in charge of the teachers. Cafes should have beds instead of seats. Why do we only get to eat breakfast in bed? Shouldn't we eat every meal like that? Isn't it time we banned shows like Britain's Got the X Factor Voice on Ice? Surely we have enough singers in the country now, and I would definitely make it illegal to say the word lol. I mean, people actually say lol rather than just laughing. If I ever got to be in charge, things would be very different. I wouldn't waffle on about how bad the other lot had been. I'd sort stuff out. I mean, how tough can it be? Grown-ups have had their turn at running the country. Why not let us kids have a go? At least that way we'd get to keep our blooming parks." And just like that, Joe had finished. As though he'd suddenly run out of batteries, he looked around to see that everyone was staring at him, open-mouthed. What seemed brilliant only a few seconds ago felt so silly now. What was he thinking? His cheeks began to flush pink with embarrassment. Suddenly there was a slapping sound, and then another. It sounded like, no, not sounded like, it was clapping. He was being applauded. "You tell them, son," said one man. "We need a few more like you in charge." The applause grew louder and louder. Joe looked at AJ. AJ looked at Joe and mouthed the word "wow" at him. He was stunned, but not as stunned as Joe. Percival T. Duckcombe snorted like a pig and stormed back into his car, yelling at the driver, "Take me back now, upstaged by a little child. Upstaged by a little child. I'll never hear the end of this." Charlie James, the TV reporter, said something to his cameraman and then turned to Joe. "That was, like totally just, well, What the heck was that supposed to mean? The TV crew whispered a few more words to each other before making a hasty exit. Suddenly, the realization of what Joe had done hit him like a wave of icy water. "Do you think Mr. Brooks will be mad?" Joe asked AJ nervously. "What? That you called the Prime Minister dafty on TV? I think we're about to find out," AJ replied. Mr. Brooks was running after the car, banging on the window, begging Percival not to leave. And that's when Joe's eyes met Violetta Crump's. She was staring at him from the limo. She didn't blink. She didn't shout. She just stared at him. Joe felt his spine tingle like it was made of ice-cold jelly. He grabbed his bag and headed for school, trying to look inconspicuous. The crowd parted as he walked on through the school doors down towards his classroom. Maybe it will all blow over, thought Joe as he waited for AJ to catch him up. And that's when he sensed it, like a deep rumble of a faraway train, a ball of anger so huge that it could be felt before it was heard. Then, like a furious belch, it hurtled out of Mr. Brooks' mouth at 100 miles an hour. "Perkins, my office now!" "Wow, that was quick," said AJ, tapping his watch. Joe and AJ sat in Mr. Brooks' office. They were so nervous they could barely look at each other, let alone speak. Mr. Brooks bounded in, slamming the door behind him. "I might have known it'd be you two," he sneered. "It's always you two." Before Mr. Brooks could utter a word of the speech he'd clearly been planning in his head, the phone started ringing. Mr. Brooks picked it up and slammed it down without answering. Joe gulped. "Mr. Brooks," AJ started, "I just wanted to say sorry. I shouldn't have—" He stopped mid-sentence and scratched his head. "Hang on, I haven't done anything. Why am I here?" "Oh, you'll be involved somewhere. You always are," Mr. Brooks hissed. The phone rang again. Mr. Brooks picked it up and hung up once more without even looking away from Joe and AJ. He was just about to start yelling again when his mobile phone started ringing. "Oh, for goodness sake," he said, switching it off. "Have you two any idea how important today was? Our school could have been famous. Do you know what that could mean? New school books?" Joe asked. "Eh?" Mr. Brooks replied with a note of surprise. "Think big, lad. Wouldn't it be great if the school had a new PE block or perhaps a new swimming pool? I was going to ask the PM for his help. I just wanted him to listen about the park," Joe began. "Imagine it, Perkins. Imagine a world where the school had a private swimming pool, only open to the very selected bunch of people. Know what I mean?" he said, tapping his nose. "You mean the children?" asked AJ. "Well, okay, some of the children. The clean ones, perhaps. Maybe the kind of children who mention that their school needs a swimming pool on TV, not the kind who call the blooming Prime Minister a dafty and go on about parks." "But he is a dafty," Joe protested. "I know that. They all are, but that's not the point. "Oh, I understand," Joe said, not really understanding. "Nothing too fancy. Just one with those with water slides and maybe a waterfall. Mr. Brooks was still in a daydream, fantasizing about swimming pools. Hello, Miss Lockley. This is our new book. I'm actually reading this so that I can upload it from Green Class's lesson tomorrow. Oh, and I like those steam rooms and a hot tub, but then you two blew it. Does Mr. Brooks actually care about the children, or is he more interested in getting a swimming pool? Once again, Mr. Brooks, totally innocent here, AJ said, holding up his hands. Then AJ's phone started to ring. Uh-oh, AJ gasped. It's for emergencies only. I never have it on during class. Hand over the phone, boy. AJ grabbed his phone and went to give it to Mr. Brooks. Oh my good crikey, he yelled, staring at the screen. You're not going to like this, Mr. Brooks. Just then, Miss Jones, the school secretary, burst in. Why aren't you answering your phone? She cried. The whole place has gone berserk trying to get a hold of you. I've got people from all over the world on the phone through there. All over the world? Mr. Brooks' eyes lit up. Wanted to talk to me? No, they want Joe. Me? Why? Joe asked, confused. You've gone viral, AJ said, handing over his phone to Joe and Mr. Brooks. Look. And that leaves us on chapter 3. I wonder what has happened. What does he mean, you've gone viral? I wonder, what does that word mean? So once you've listened to this, or once you've read the chapter, you've got some questions to answer. I hope you enjoyed that chapter. I actually really enjoyed that chapter. It was quite funny to see all the different characters and how they are acting. I hope you're enjoying the book. As always, stay home, stay safe, stay positive. See you later, everybody, and see you later, Green Class.